Hello and welcome to Season 3 of Beyond Borders. This is the space where we explore the harder questions, the ones that don't always fit in a headline. Each week we go deeper into the future of creativity, systems, technology and trust. Not just to make sense of where we're going, but to ask, what are we building and who are we becoming as we build it?
Hello, and welcome back to the Beyond Borders episode. Another team, another day, and as always, with Caroline and Franco. And today we actually talk about something very immersive called immersive experiences. I hope that you sometimes already have experienced an immersive experience or visited a museum that has an immersive experience. Today we're going to talk about it. In what sense does it really make it immersive? Do immersive moments shape a long-time message? Can they educate? Can they entertain? All these things. Does it require a VR or is immersive also with light, screen work, actors? We're going to talk about it today and see what we think of it. Therefore, I want to start with the question, Caroline, have you ever experienced an immersive experience in a museum, on work, or any event?
Thank you, Pim. Interesting topic. Yes, I've been to a few immersive events and I think I've created some as well, maybe without realizing it, but thinking about today's topic, I think that's the case. But you know what? I'm going to be honest here and say that I think the term gets used a little too loosely sometimes. For me, true immersion isn't about spectacle or sensory overload. It's about staying with, being, in something. It's really hard to explain, but it's being part of something, truly immersed in something. It's about giving something you're doing or thinking about or being a part of your full self, your full presence long enough for it to shift you. And in that sense, the most immersive experiences I've had in life were actually quite quiet, quite mundane, reading a letter that arrived at exactly the right time, walking through a city with no agenda and feeling something open in me. So I'm drawn to immersion, but not the packaged kind, the real kind, the kind that invites something inward, not just grabs your attention outward. And for me, there's kind of two bits to this. There's the immersion that is part of the human psyche. It may not be a hot trend, it may be a hot trend at the moment, but that's because companies realize the human need for multi-sensory experience and they're tapping into that. I don't want to get into that too deeply now, but that's kind of my take on it, Pim.
Yeah, but is it then already important what you said that even, for example, walking through a city can be immersive, and that
Exactly.
people should realize that even those small things you can manage with yourself, saying, okay, today I'm gonna immerse myself within the city or the way you
Mm,
walk, even sitting in the metro, looking outside. That is also immersing yourself. It's not always have to be a VR or a screen or a certain location. What about you,
exactly.
Spranko? Do you have experienced many immersive events, museums, or just like Caroline, where you just walk through a city and really immerse yourself within the area you're currently walking?
Yes, I love how Caroline started off, because for someone like me who's really fascinated by the mind, when we talk about immersion or immersive experiences, it's beyond the entertainment that comes along with, you know, spending time in the moment is equally as profound as mindfulness. And that's why I love, the topic we're having today. For me, is a little bit of both. I would say I lean more on the the real life, real world experiences, not necessarily having the gadgets, on the face or, having those fun and insane experiences, but spending time in the moment, immersing yourself with conscious activity that reminds you of your existence and the value that you have as an individual. So yeah, I believe that both aspects of immersive experiences are to be embraced. But I just fancy, that real world experience more because it kind of gives a better understanding of oneself if you really tap into it.
Mm.
Yes, and would you then also say if you're not going there or going somewhere with the thought today, I'm going to immerse myself, that no matter how the location looks or no matter how the business did the design, you will never immerse yourself when the mind is not there?
Exactly.
Yeah, I also agree on that. Otherwise, you just look without actually looking in in the same sentence where you just see a picture and not look into the picture. And do you think that X or Web3 is currently doing enough to immerse people within Web3 or just on the platform X to say it's sustainable for the long term? Or do you really think that there should be big changes when it comes to immersing yourself in Web3 for many?
Yeah, I think it's majorly about the question we ask ourselves. What is immersion? What do we qualify as immersive experiences on an individual basis? Right. For one person, it could be spending a lot of time just doom scrolling, and they immerse themselves in every bit that comes on the platform. And for someone else, it could be spending time with respective communities within the platform. So I think it really boils down to what we want on an individual basis. That would determine the long term use. But I feel at the moment they're just really scampering around, trying whatever works, which is completely okay. And I think we may have lost the plot with understanding the difference between immersive experiences and just mere short-term distractions, which could also, seem to immerse one. You find yourself lost in an activity that you not necessarily enjoy. You don't necessarily want to participate in, but you find yourself involved, you know, regardless. So, um, as regards the platform specifically, I have my struggles with it, like a lot of users do. But I think if platforms want to create, you know, ambiences, environments where each user is immersed in using the app or the platform, it needs to put themselves in their shoes, create environments, create ambiences, create atmospheres, rooms, whatever you want to call it, forums that get people to want to stay there, not necessarily just have something that's the everything app. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I'm also curious about Caroline, because you are very involved with Web3 and things. What would you like to see on the platform or just in general on Web3, where you really say, okay, people can immerse themselves in Web3 via this way or via this project, or what should they do?
It's an interesting question. It's a difficult one to answer, Pim, because I think, if we look at Web3, then it doesn't really have a home, does it? We talk about Web3 living on X and our a little bubble of Web3, but it isn't Web3. There's a lot going on in the Web3 crypto world outside of X that we know nothing about, really, or little about. And so it's super difficult. And Spenko's right, if we right, go back a sec. It's really difficult to stimulate immersion, but that's exactly what we're all exposing ourselves to every day on social media. And Sprinkle's like, right, it's head down. You lose, literally days, weeks, months, even if you allow it to consume you in the way that many of us do. But that's not the immersion we're kind of talking about today. But it's a really valid point to bring it up because it is part of, again, these companies understanding the psyche of humans and then giving us and tethering us to their platforms daily. And that's kind of the bad side, I think. So we have to be careful because we don't want to tether people, do we, in a space without value? And I'm unpicking this as I'm answering your question because what is the value then, and how do we communicate that? Because we've got artists in Web3, we've definitely got crypto bros, which are the dominant, I would say, strain on X, if you like. And when I say strain, I mean like community. And then we've got other people, I guess, with other kind of, preferences and interests in terms of Web3 content creators, music people. And so what is it that we want to be immersed in? It's fractured, I think. And that's only dawning on me as I'm answering this question. Because, how many years are we going to keep saying Web3 is early? But I'm going to say it again, because it's early, it hasn't consolidated in any form. It's kind of fractured. Therefore, it's very difficult to be immersed in it on block. We're immersed in our little corner of it, which, for me is the art community. And I know for you as well, and Sprenko with mental health. So it's a really difficult question to answer. And at this point, I don't have an answer in terms of how Web3 could be an immersive experience without, I think, it getting out from underneath of X. There you go. That's the answer.
I think it's a very well described answer. And I think the fractured part is very important for everybody who is listening and is into Web3 and want to expand. Try to regain more of a complete community is going to be difficult, but
Mm,
maybe with the fractures that are within Web3, different immersive experience can arise. I think definitely from the art perspective, it's probably the easiest one because you can make immersive galleries. Museums do it now more. Great larger exhibitions like to add more immersive ways into the gallery. You see slowly by slowly, you see more VR experiences for not just for immersive experience, but also for education. Uh, so showing heritage, like a cultural history factor, all those things are slowly getting there on the art part, where they're really trying to pull everybody into the gallery, into the experience. But my question in that sense is that a current trend? Or is that really something that's also so new that will develop over the years? What do you think, Franco?
I think it's gonna develop over the years. I believe there's really a handful of people who are exploring, immersive experiences using the likes of the VRs. I think at the moment, especially with education, it's new to the scene. Just very few people are doing that. Even with gaming, although that's more expensive on that front. So I think over the next few years, we'll definitely get to see more people explore immersive experiences, especially with the inclusion or the extension to having in our everyday lives, using your smartphones and using even VRs at work. So I think in the next few years we'll definitely see more people tap into that field, explore immersive experiences, and maybe it could become just part of our daily lives.
Yes, and on the part of inclusion, do you think leadership roles, like or management roles, should look into the immersive experience that showcase things that could happen on the work floor, that everybody eventually knows what a reaction or just a comment could do to somebody else on the work floor, so that full inclusion of the workforce that you have on on your business or whatever actually knows what a comment could do to somebody else, and actually that you change yourself. Do you think that should be mandatory, or that actually should be happening a lot more than currently done within offices?
Mandatory? I don't think so, but optional, recommended, encouraged, yeah, more likely. Because I believe that the most you can get out of an immersive experience, permit me to say, right? For me, it's not really about the gadget or the tool that is used. It speaks about the experience in itself. So if whoever is in that leadership role has not dedicated themselves to be immersed in that cause to create immersive experiences for staff, colleagues, and other people, the gadget or the tool being used would not make that much of a difference because without the whoever you're trying to express that to would feel the depth or the connection that you're trying to share. So mandatory, I don't think so, but it should be encouraged. And I think maybe when more people, because we seem to be a species that leans towards shiny new toys. So maybe if more people are educated about the use of these tools as means to an end and not, oh, the peak of whatever you want to achieve or you want to experience or what you want to enjoy or explore, but a means to an end. And maybe we'll see more people embrace that even in leadership roles.
Yes. And for, let's say, Caroline, what do you think when it comes to the current immersive experience that can be seen, let's say, everywhere, and not necessarily immersing yourself within a community or a city? What kind of immersive experience do you think has the most value? Is that entertainment? Is it education? Is that culture and heritage? What is your opinion on that?
You know what, Pim? I think I'm going to take a step back here and I'm going to say that immersive environments or experiences are not just about tools. And I've listened to you both speaking about leadership here, leaders as space holders rather than just being driven by outcome drivers. That's what we're talking about. And this is the same in this question. So what we're talking about here isn't just tool driven. It isn't just mechanistic, and that's because of us, because of what we bring to the exchange in whatever it is that we're doing, whether we've bought a ticket to a show or we're showing up for work expecting to be treated fairly. So if we unpick all of that, isn't it about trust? It's about trust. It's not about tools. So when we feel safe as individuals to show up fully, to be ourselves, that's when real transformation begins. Whether you're a leader or you're an individual, how you feel when you enter a space dictates what you're able to achieve within it, feel from it. And I guess, you know, it in this fragmented world that we live in currently, how we are able to scale that up into the systems that we are a part of that need to have trust at their core is a difficult question, isn't it? So I might not have answered the question there, but it's where listening to both of you and the question has taken my brain at the minute. So, for anything to be immersive, whether it's walking down a street in an unfamiliar city or walking into work, it depends on the environment, on how immersive we can be. And yes, of course, you stick a VR headset on and all of that is out the window and blocked out, and it's just you and whatever it is that's in that VR headset. And that is amazing and wonderful. But step out of that in the real world, in real world settings, fundamentally to have an immersive experience on whatever level, you have to trust. Make sense?
Yes, and then you're also saying that with just doing a VR experience is not enough to translate it to the real life world.
Mm.
That there always should be some kind of intro education added to the VR experience. Otherwise, Of course, for entertainment, it's different. When you're playing a VR game, it works different. But when you're looking for the educational, the cultural heritage parts of immersive experience, if there's no introduction,
Mm.
then it's just the same as getting an image. There is no extra thought, and you not also no thought afterwards, which I want to add go to Sprenko because you are more familiar with how mental health works and also how the minds work. If we want
Mm.
to educate people with VR later on, or actually it's already being done, but what is the best, let's say, way of approach for businesses in your mind, where you say then you achieve the best reaction from the people participating within this experience?
I think one of the best ways to connect with people is to speak their language. Get people that, you know, to really reach the hearts of people, connect with them in a way that they will not just understand, but be able to trust, like Karen has said, be safe, feel safe with. While the conversation was ongoing, it just came to me that one of the best ways that we can, explore immersive experiences would be in the field of, culture and tourism. It would be beautiful to go to a new city and for whatever reason, say places like, parts of Africa, the Middle East and the likes, insecurity issues exist, right? Now you'll be unable to get to certain areas. For example, you wanted to explore certain dishes, certain cultures, you cannot do that. In the meantime, imagine being able to step into a world where you get to hear, feel, and connect with such rich culture and history as if it was in the times, as if you were right there. That's one way that I feel like people would easily learn about other people, cultures, uh, practices, history, and the likes. They feel like, yo, you're back in 1814 when this was happening and that was happening. You feel like you were right there. And I think that's one of the best ways that people will be able to really seep into understanding and really learning about other people. I think that's one way that we can really explore immersive experience and be really effective.
Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, I was just going to say, listening to Sprinko, it's just dawned on me really. It is, I think it's less about format and more about frequency, and that's something that we don't talk a lot about, but something again that we are super sensitive to as humans, even if we don't realize it. So, for me, on the back of what Svenka's just said, those environments that just allow us to drop in, to learn, to remember, to connect, or to reimagine together. That's where immersion belongs. That's the foundation of an immersive experience. That basis of trust, and then the space opening up to enable you to feel, to learn, to remember, or to connect. Make sense?
Definitely, and I also agree. Besides that, it's probably a better form or a newer form where education can actually prevail, where it's easier to learn certain things because it's activating, and maybe nowadays you can also gamify it where people actually really experience, but also put themselves into the place of the experience where they learn. And therefore, I'm also thinking for you, Caroline, if you could make an immersive experience where you think people will benefit the most from, what should it be?
Of the things that I've experienced in life to enable me to answer that question. And I may not be typical here, Pim. I don't know, but some of the most, and I hinted at it at the beginning, some of the most immersive experiences I've had took place in the smallest of spaces, a one-to-one conversation, a pop-up exhibition that I didn't expect to see, or even sitting on a bench with someone who was fully there. So for me, it doesn't need scale, it needs intentionality. And I think if I was sitting around a table talking to people who are designing at scale, they need to come back to the smallest denominator, the intentionality, and the capacity, you know, it is always there in us as humans, this capacity for immersive experience. It just needs the right ingredients. It's about entry, trust, anchoring. And that can happen anywhere that presence is designed in. Think about AI at the moment. When people feel safe enough to arrive somewhere fully, that's transformation can happen. And it and that's happening every day with people when they relate to AI. And it's the bit that the companies are missing because whilst the AI doesn't experience immersion, humans do. And you can't engineer that out through guardrails and architecture. So, I go back to what I said, which is if I was sitting around a table with people designing these large scale systems to get people into immersive experiences, I would be looking at the small things that they do that connect with the human, that allow the human trust, that enthrall and captivate. That's the key. So any of that makes sense?
Yes, and therefore I asked the same question before we wrap up to Sprenko.
That's a very interesting one. And I was just, rummaging through my brain while Karen was speaking. I love the question. And by the way, for me, it would be about inserting people in different realities to give them a better understanding about stigma associated with our everyday life, trauma associated with our everyday life. Because a lot of times, especially in mental health communities, when you talk about trauma, for example, a lot of people just think about the big T, trauma, you know, and forget the fact that a lot of people, over 85% of people in the world on a daily basis have experience with multi traumas and they are ongoing. They're part of our system. In fact, our brains have been rewired to see it as the normal status quo. You know what I mean? So it would be beautiful, I think, to have the means to insert people in realities where they get to experience, quote unquote, firsthand what it feels like to be, for example, a leader of a, multinational company. Imagine a regular staff having to experience what it means to be the CEO of, say, you know, JP Morgan for a day in 30 minutes. They get to, for a bit, experience what it feels like to be the other person. And in that note, we can maybe get get an easier way to encourage things like empathy, selflessness, togetherness, understanding, effective communication, kindness. Those may be so much more easier to comprehend and experience and practice, on a larger scale when we have experiences like that. So that would be something I would definitely be looking to tap into.
I think that's a very interesting one. Experience like being the CEO of JP Morgan for a day and see what it beholds and what the day will be. I think that's a
Hmm.
great one. I will really be into it to just see how let's say, a multi-billion business is run by on a day-to-day basis by the CEO. And
Hmm.
therefore, maybe a question for the listeners. What is an immersive experience you would like to see? And also for us, what is an experience you recommend for us that you have done, that you have seen, that you're personally involved with? We are very curious to know. And therefore, I want to thank everybody for listening. Don't forget to follow us on our socials. Feel free to reply and see you the next time. Thank you very much and bye bye.